Hi guys, my name is Anima, the Soul. I'm a manager and an artist, and I will be presenting my own TV show here once every month on Dorf TV. My show is called Lives, and it is a format in which I'll be interviewing people whose lives aren't quite middle of the road. It is my own little educational program on diversity and tolerance, and I'll try my best to visually adapt to each and every one of my exclusive guests. Now, my first guest today is a social reformer of sorts, and very active in the Occupy anonymous environment. And his own little toy project, which made him famous, centers around the topic of the end of money as we know it. Now, I usually start, welcome Franz. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Glad to be invited.
Thank you. I always start my show by letting people or having people introduce themselves, because I think this is the most authentic way of how people feel they are. So now, what would you say, from your own point of view, not anybody else's, what makes you out?
I'm a scientist that is really interested in background knowledge and in the foundations of science. And I started in the field of economics, and in a very short time I found out that economics isn't really a science. It is an instrument of power, and it has to do with the design of our society. One of the tools for power relations in our society is the monetary system. And once you have grasped the idea, you feel that it is necessary to change it. Because we have lots of technology out there, lots of very, very modern knowledge, and we cannot implement it in our society as long as we use money as a medium of exchange.
Yeah, because those who control money will necessarily control all the innovations, or, well, decide which of those to put out and which not. And that's not necessarily something that benefits people in general, or only a handful usually.
They use the monetary system to create scarceness in different fields, and in fact it's a kind of blackmail system for each and everyone in our society, and this has to be changed. And there are a lot of people out there who already understand the problem and have very, very clever ideas how to change it. And I do believe already that it is not a question of the social hierarchy, the hierarchy level in our society, because on each and every level already many people understand that we have to do something, because our monetary system has come to a natural end, a mathematical end.
Yeah, a lot of systems are coming to their ends right now.
Yeah.
Not just money, but also the way people perceive, or what people perceive.
Das geht so nicht.
Warum? Hört man nichts, oder?
Nein, du steuerst an den Kragen.
Ah, das ist schlecht. Gut.
Dann fange ich nochmal an, oder?
So, und jetzt bitte, das habe ich gemacht.
Was so ist. Ja, ich habe ja gesagt. Okay. Ja, mit derselben Frage anfangen wie von vorher, oder was? Oder wie ich gerade keine, wie ich wollte. Ja, eben, passt. A lot of systems are coming to the end right now. We just had a discussion on individuality and how people perceive that. And of course, the monetary system is one of the most inefficient systems probably imaginable as well. So yeah, you can see that change is popping up everywhere. Now, to be more specific, what projects, work-wise or privately, or I'm not sure if you separate that so much, are you working on right now?
First of all, I try to make popular a different kind of monetary system. I call it information money. In German, Informationsgeld.info, with its own website already. their money, the numbers that we see, going up when we do something and going down if we consume things out of our society, those numbers are a medium of cooperation and not a medium of exchange. Because the money is created for each and everyone in our society, and when he or she is going to spend it, it's not given away as a medium of exchange. It is destroyed.
Yeah.
It's deleted. So it pops up from nowhere and it goes back to nowhere if you use it. This is a money system, a monetary system, that links the relativity theory from Einstein and the quantum theory from Max Planck into our economy. So we have a relativistic and a quantum theoretic money system that can free our society. And this is the basis, the very foundation of individuality, of a new political system that I call cooperative individualism. And it is really very interesting that you can find an American website in the internet called cooperativeindividualism.org. It is a very old, many hundred years old idea, and it comes from the year 1776, from the fathers of the US Constitution.
So it's been there all this time, and nobody tackled it, nobody wanted
it has
to implement.
Always been out there as a goal, a political goal, as an idea, but in fact they didn't succeed in implementing it. Perhaps people were not ready for that. Perhaps the common consciousness has to reach a certain level before it will be possible. This is my first project, but on the other hand, there are a lot of other projects that link and support each other. There is a non-ideological platform called humanway.at, and this is a social experiment of a self-organizing society where people with extraordinary possibilities can show the rest of the population how they can live together totally free as individuals, supporting each other and not controlling each other. That makes a difference. This is human way. And on the other hand, we have the Kreditopferverein, where people can show up when they have troubles to pay back the loans from the banks. And there are already attorneys there involved that give them advice and show them that the money that they receive, obviously receive from the banks in a loan, is not illegal money. It is only an entry in the general ledger of the banks. And therefore, there is really no legal reason to pay those loans back.
Oh, that's very handy to have. I need one of those attorneys, actually.
Yeah, we have them in Germany, Hans Schaap in Germany, and in Austria too, and they are already working together.
Oh, that's very clever, actually. So if you, because credits are usually are one of the most destructive things in society today. I mean, they're killing people. On one hand, you might say, okay, well, you know, there's a reason why I take up a loan, because I need to buy something or do something, and then it might be considered unfair and just well, illegal from a moral point of view not to pay it back. But I had my own experiences with banks that usually fool people, very often fool people into not loans, but fool people into situations where they cannot act in any different way, and then they're sort of have them pinned in a certain situation. They think, and they will, do anything they want with that person, as much as that's possible, and a lot is possible, unfortunately. So my point of view is, I'm a very moral person, but I do understand why this kind of idea would work, and why it should work, maybe in some, if not all cases. Okay, but you're also a lecturer at university.
Yeah.
What exactly are you doing there?
I'm preparing a new master course at the Vienna University of Economics, dealing with the scientific foundations of accounting, where it comes from, how it can be used, and how it cannot be used, in fact. It will be called Symbolic Accounting Systems, and the general theme is how can we change human behavior using symbols? And in fact, I'm starting very far back in history, in times when magical symbols were used and hypnosis was used. And if we look at our automatic telling machines, we see that those old systems of symbolic hypnosis is still implemented in our society.
So you're basically trying to reprogram people in the way they think, like NLP-wise, or is this going in this direction?
I'm showing and decovering the hidden system of hypnosis that is rooted in our monetary system, because the numbers in your bank account don't have an economic background. There is a logical reason why the money in the bank cannot even be, for logical reasons, a medium of exchange. It's very, very interesting. If you look at the bills, paper bills, you will see a serial number. This is an identity code, an ID for your bill. No matter if it is $10, 20 euros, whatever, it has an identity, an ID number. So only if something has an ID, it can be changed, exchanged. It's a medium of exchange. If you look at a bank account or in every other account in a general ledger system, then you have only the value, only the number, and no ID number. So the numbers that are generated in a loan or that you see on a balance sheet or in an account of an accounting software have no IDs. Therefore, they are not mediums of exchange. It's only a measure of value. And the measure of value, if you get a loan for your house, for example, is only, it's written down the value of your house. It's the value of something that you already own. But in the bank, it's simply written down, and then they fake it, the value of your house, by making you believe that this is a medium of exchange. What is only a measurement of the value of something that you are already the owner of. So this is the core problem in our Giro money system, in the money created by the banks in giving loans, and not only in giving loans. Always when the bank buys something, when a bank buys commercial papers or buildings, computer systems, or they pay the employees, or the dividends of the owners, the bank never uses coins or bills, legal money. It only makes a booking entry in the account of the receiver. And this is nothing else but the debt of the bank itself. So a bank never pays with money. It only creates its own debt. And we are made believing that the debt of the bank is money.
Yeah, and which also explains why there is so much, why is good, the reason why there is so much artificial Scheingeld around circulating. I mean, the fake money, the amount of fake money is like, I don't know how many times over the amount of factual goods that exist. That
only
is
numbers written down on paper sheets. But in our current system, there is, for some legal reasons, not really a way out of that. That's the main problem. Politicians and even the managers in the banks, they don't see another way It is really a very difficult situation. So therefore we have to go a completely different direction and then offer it as a new possibility, as a solution for those troubles that we may find right before our doors within some months, I think. And what we don't want is make some other people legally pay for that, because it's not a personal debt of the bank managers or the politicians. They have no other possibility to act today in the current system. So the population and some scientists have to implement completely different systems and then make that an offer for society to try it. I believe new monetary systems cannot be implemented only in theory, in your mind. They have to be tried out by trial and error. And the security for society comes from trying new monetary systems. Because if they don't succeed, it's quite clear that we must help the people that are crashed down by the not succeeding new monetary system. And this is something that is founded on humanitarian foundations and not on economic foundations. And that makes the difference. And this is one of the goals of human way.
Yeah, but that's a big problem too, because the monetary system as it is so big and has become so inhuman that it at the same time washes away all notions of humanity or altruism in society, and that's a huge problem. But I do understand that I think it's a very clever thing to do. To offer people options for new stuff. I mean, in a way, this is the same thing that I'm doing or other people are doing when we're toying with individuality. I mean, I don't need to run around in this costume. It's very extreme. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh, God, I've felt like all kinds of things in this. Most of the time it's okay when I wear it because I just stop thinking about it, but it's a similar thing. And I just hope that over the course of time that those systems that will crystal out or will prove themselves to be functional and humanitarian will at some point replace the other systems. Now, but so you're having a couple of very alternative projects running, and you're having a very non-alternative job at university, which in your case, I guess you're lucky because as a scientist you get to somehow define what you're actually researching and working on, but still it's a very classical job at university. So my question would be, I realize that whoever I talk to wants to change things obviously has to notice first that there's something wrong. Sometimes you just notice it because you're watching a scene where something outrageous happens. Sometimes it's our own personal history that makes us become even more or faster aware of that there's something wrong. How did you end up in your university job, and how did you end up doing what you do as a lecturer at university? That is something, the way you do it is so unusual. I mean, symbolic accountancy isn't exactly what is being taught as a standard at university, not yet. But were there incidents, or were there mentors or kindred spirits that on your way that influenced you and that sort of led you on in a certain direction? You said there were, so for example, what was it?
There has been a personal development. I started in the year 2000 to give lectures in the field of knowledge management. Right here at the university in Linz, the Johannes Kepler University, and there I met a professor of philosophy. In the meantime, quite a good friend of mine, Rainer Born, and he's a philosopher. He teaches history of science, and we work together a lot. We met at conferences, wrote papers together, and he gave me great insights into the history of science. And he has a very, very interesting biography by himself, and he knows a lot of people in the international scientific community. And if you talk to those people very, very fast, you understand that science is quite a different game than is played on our mainstream universities. Science has really to do with finding new knowledge, new models, new ideas, and then just to try them out. One of the greatest mistakes today in mainstream universities is that we always go from the theory into the practice. But there are many, many alternative views. You can use a successful practice even when the theory is lacking. In the lack of theory, and later on try to build a theory around the method that you are using. And the theory or a hypothesis that is falsified has never to be deleted, erased completely. It is by far better to keep it in a kind of certain storage and to put it out later on when the context has changed. So the way how you are dealing with your hypothesis and your mental building blocks of systems is, if you're really a scientist, quite different from what is lectured on mainstream universities. It has to do a lot with your personality too, how your empathy. If you are talking to people, and so if you are dominating people, and it is really a pleasure for you always to be right against some other person, then I would say you are never will be a very successful scientist. A scientist has to be very flexible in his mind, and it is not a matter of being right or being wrong. Science is always dynamically evolving by itself, and all models are only temporarily valid. This is the most important foundation of science.
Yeah, but that is a huge problem, because most scientists I know, especially in fields where it would be really, really relevant in a sense that those people actually work with people a lot and can influence their lives to the good or the bad. Very many of those people, say in medicine, psychology, wherever, are so, sort of lost on their track. They can only see one minuscule fragment of reality, and they hold it for the absolute truth, and that is so you are definitely different in your thinking. I'm sure there's many other people, and a rising number, growing numbers of people that are starting to allow themselves to really use their cognitive functions to the full. But what I'm seeing all around is just unfortunately not. That's still a very rare case, especially around here in Austria. So now, you're tackling a major problem, and that is the monetary system. And as far as I know from all kinds of Facebook information or whatever, you're very active in your spare time too, and you're holding a lot of lectures and talks. And how do you must get all kinds of reactions towards them, negative, positive. What kinds of negative reactions do you usually get? And if you get positive ones, is there one that you could especially recall, something that was especially moving?
Yeah, the negative reactions that are quite usual are political claims. It is very interesting that if you attack the monetary system, particularly the system of interest, then you are viewed as being part of the right-wing political system. And this is something very ridiculous in this case, because the foundation of my theories and my arguments you can find in quite a similar view by Karl Marx. Karl Marx had many arguments that are, if you view them in the light of our current financial crisis, you have to say they are solid, they are logical, they make sense. And therefore, if you attack me and say it's an ultra-right political idea to create a monetary system without using interest, then I don't know what's the reason for that. In fact, I'm a not political person. I don't believe in a logical reason why I should differentiate parts of the population in being left-wing or right-wing political parties. It doesn't make any sense, because the doctrines, the ideologies of those parties are harmful. At least we can do away with them. We don't need them. We need clever solutions for problems at hand for our population. And political ideologies were never useful for finding solutions for the populations out there on the street. So this is something that I have learned to live with. I can ignore it, and I don't even feel insulted if people claim such things. I know it has to do with the personal biography. They are imprinted by viewing everything through a political, ideological filter. I know such people, and I know that it's quite hard for them to live in times of great change as today. So I can understand that. But the positive reactions are very, very interesting, and they are about 98% of the reactions, in fact, today. And I'm particularly glad to see many very young persons, pupils in school even, contacting me on Facebook and writing that they have large discussions with their teachers, changing their worldview. Giving them the links to YouTube where you can find speeches and discussions where I try to convince other members that our monetary system has to change. And it seems that many teachers in school already shifted their mindset because their pupils were so insisting on bringing the new ideas in the classroom. And this is something that I'm very, very, very happy. It makes me happy to be one of those persons that make a change, a shift in the mindset of the new generation.
Yeah, that's good. I wasn't expecting it to be so many already. I mean, I know, I noticed that especially the young people are born to be a lot more open-minded and flexible in their thinking than, you know, the older generations used to be very often. And that's a good sign. That's a sign that things might change. Now, I'm having a very hard question, but I decided I wanted to ask you this because we've never really discussed it. And I've known you for 2.5 years now, roughly. And I've only followed, I remember there was this day, and I don't know when it was, 2011 some point maybe. And I was still, or 2012, somewhere in Vienna, and I was reading the newspapers. And every once in a while I read about people I know, but in this case I read an article about you And it just almost knocked me off my feet. And I called you, and you were totally relaxed. And I was going like, you can't be relaxed. This is a major catastrophe. You know, how can you be so relaxed about this? You know, and the point was that you explained to me what happened, but from my point of view, I was reading an article that was sort of branding you and stigmatizing you as a Nazi, which was the absolute opposite of how I perceived you. I mean, I'm not surprised you're saying you're a non-political person. But if I would have had to put you in some political direction, I would have probably said, okay, he's a communist, or at least somewhere towards the left side of things, you know, and a very altruistic and communist person in a way. And then I read this and I was going like, how can they do this? I mean, I also remembered I told you like half a year or even longer before that I was amazed that you're doing what you're doing, and there is no hard wind from the other side, and you were being relaxed at that point too. So I don't know. I think there's very few things that can shake you, but it shocked me. So can you explain to me what happened? Short version back then. Yes.
It was the usual political campaign. If someone goes out there, talking to the people on the street, explaining what's wrong in our system, and then he brings quite logical arguments that the people can understand. This person looks very dangerous in the eyes of some people up there in the hierarchy of power. But I really expected something like that, so I wasn't surprised at all. And in fact, I'm very grateful because they used velvet gloves. If they would really have tried to harm me, there would have been quite different incidents. It was only a strategy to compromise me so that the mainstream political parties cannot risk to contract me publicly. Because this would have been very dangerous for our political system. I can convince ordinary politicians that our monetary system is rubbish. And they can show them new ways where the whole population is better off. And this is really a great danger, because there are many, many people behind the scenes trying to do their best to come out with a new monetary system, but keeping their power positions in place. Yeah? And this is something, in my point of view, which will not be possible. Yeah. The next system will be a society without explicit power structure. Perhaps we will have some kind of power, but it will be in the personality, in authority, in knowledge, in empathy, in communication skills, things like that, what psychologists call natural authority, and not a formal authority. That makes a great difference, because natural authority you have also in very primitive societies, where some elderly people are natural authorities just because of their biography and their life experience. Yeah. And this is something that makes sense in my point of view.
Yeah, it's the only authority I've ever accepted, because it makes sense. You would naturally respect somebody who really has something to say, and you can feel that. Whereas you very often come across people who, have nothing to say, and they act like
but they
primitive
have powerful jobs.
Yeah, I know. And that's the point. So so they were trying to get you out, or trying to knock you out for a while. Now, you seem to be pretty relaxed about it, but you also have a family. So I remember that you were suspended for a while from your job, and this was going to the high courts or something like this. And so you didn't know where your money was going to come from after a while. I mean, the university does pay a certain fraction of your...
Two-thirds.
2/3, and you have 2 great kids and a great wife. And how did they feel? Did you prepare them somehow through your personality, or just because you expected it to happen, or what happened? Were they talked to, harassed, or were they?
No, not at all. They were expecting it too, and it didn't really harm our family life at all.
And there were no the people.
No, the friends and the neighbors. Yeah, I'm good friend with all of my neighbors. They know me, but not with my academic title.
Yeah.
Only as a private person, and nothing has changed.
That really went well. So it's actually good. I mean, it was good. You got a taste of it, but you weren't really harmed.
Not at all.
So that's.
And in my understanding, this is the best lecture that they can give to me and I can give back to them. That if you simply ignore it and say, I'm not insulted, I understand your reaction, but it has nothing to do with me, with my person. It's only my role. My role in the society that does not fit in your political minds. And understand that. But we don't have to be enemies because of that. Because the whole political system is shifting. We all know that. And you will find a different place and I will find a different place. So we can work together. It's not necessary to be an enemy to anyone. Because everything is shifting now. And we all are sifting and drifting, and we will find new different places. We don't know yet where we'll find ourselves to be in the new society. But this is something that makes it very interesting, even funny, I think.
Yeah, this is why you're wearing this clown's nose. Now I get it.
Yeah, because it has to do with economics as a science. You cannot take economics serious.
Okay. So that's even very precise meaning then. Cool. Now, there is so you mentioned that your minor sort of is knowledge management, something that you're very interested in, and I know when you're typing in Franz Hörmann at YouTube, you get a lot of interviews, obviously, apparently, about the end of money, but you also get interviews in which you're talking about the possibility of the existence of UFOs and all types of fringe science topics. And that's also another trend I notice that's happening fast, is that there is a growing amount of scientists, high-ranked scientists, like from places like Berkeley, Stanford, wherever, that are from physics, biology, human genetics, whatever, who are, I wouldn't say dabbling, but they're really putting their mind to thinking about fringe science. And that is something, from my point of view, it's becoming more and more, and that you can't really ignore it anymore. So, from your point of view, what does that have to do, or where does the classical scientific process come in, or how do they fit? Are those people just crazy? Is it a mass psychosis, or does it have a reason? And because you're the expert, so let me ask you the major question in the field: what can we know, and how does it fit in with the topic of fringe science?
It is exactly the same topic as the end of money. The real question is, what are we going to do with materialism? Materialism, the old idea of Demokrit, that the whole universe consists of indestructible particles made of matter. It seems that this hypothesis is wrong, or at least it's not very meaningful if we go down and down and down to even lower levels in physics. There is a Nobel laureate, Robert B. Laughlin, Nobel laureate in physics, who wrote a very, very interesting book, A Different Universe, subtitle, Reinventing Physics from the Bottom Down. And he explains that our mainstream models of physics are not very useful, and it might be that what the alchemists believed about the universe, that there is some flowing liquid, fluid substance, they called the quintessence or the ether, that this is something that we can use, and it would be a better tool for our goals. And if we follow those tracks of ether physics, then paranormal phenomena and things like that, or UFOs, perfectly make sense. Then, if you use a kind of physics that is grounded in this basic model of ether, then all this is a viable reality. It is possible to do that. And there is no contradiction to the so-called laws of nature. And this is very interesting because the idea that indestructible particles are at the fundamental level is the same in physics as in our society. In our society, it is money, indestructible particles of value that we are giving around in a circle in our society as a medium of exchange. Materialism in a psychological, philosophical way. And on the other hand, you have materialism in the physical way. It's the basis of our universe. And you see, deep at the roots, it's the same idea. And if you change this idea down there, we change the society in all realms, in all different apartments. And this is the reason why in my lectures and in my public discussions, I always point at this, because they are really very, very interesting scientists that are coming out now with something that they know for years or decades, but it was not possible for them to say it sooner.
Yeah.
Now we are living in the times of change, and what we are believing that is a fact of science today will be a very odd idea some years later, I think.
Yeah, it's always been. I mean, like if you're looking back, our beliefs are not, or only in certain fragments, compatible with the beliefs of the Mayans, for example, or the like. I mean, it wouldn't be normal for us or acceptable for us to sacrifice people and throw them down the stairs of the temple, you know, and those people wouldn't be willing to be sacrificed either. So it's interesting, you know. What might be the truth in one area, in one place on the planet, might not be the same someplace else. Especially not when we're talking different time periods too. So, yeah, a lot of that is in flux, and so you're trying to make people's perception more liquid in a way with your projects,
Yeah.
and you're trying to sort of liquefy this hard material that, you know, makes it so hard for people to break out, and that, you know, has gotten to their brains basically and sort of frozen them.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Because it makes sense, you know, that the way I perceive science, it's like there's this tiny little spot that's being worked on, and everybody just gets told, or people get told and educated to that this little fragment is all there is in reality. But nobody really, at the same time, nobody really tries, or very few people try to sort of walk out and leave that area, because you can see there is stuff around it, but nobody dares, or few people dare to walk out, and that's illogical for me, because if I want to know and find out about something, how something really is for me, because once again that is subjective, and then we're getting back to that old debate between, for example, I think it was Freud and Sir Karl Popper. And they were talking about what is a science, what can we know, and how objective is science. then you have to, you know, I always only can say what I am able to perceive. On the other hand, you have to find out as much as possible about the area that you're researching into to make make a valid examination and to make a valid point. And this is what is not happening. I mean, I'm not working in science, but I'm a very rational person, I think, in that respect. So it makes great sense for me that you're actually trying to sort of digress and try to, you know, to basically figure out what the whole area is about instead of keeping yourself limited to one.
It's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the change of social roles in our society. Social roles are frozen patterns of behavior, and this is a part of a materialistic model, a materialistic model of society. If you look at the way how our society is steered and controlled today, you will find out the most important part is data systems consisting of financial numbers. But those financial numbers are parts of dead matter, coins of gold in our common understanding. In fact, there is no gold around, and even if there were gold, we have to ask why should it be valuable at all. But on the other hand, if we would like to live in a humanistic society, it would be at first important to have an information systems to steer and control the society that has implemented personal data of the individuals, like a medical database, for example. And if we implement that, it will be possible to give each and every person in our society a private economical system with a private price system, tariff system, basket of commodities. So we stop making treaties between one and another, and we have only one treaty, one person with the rest of the society. This will free us. There will be no claims and no debts anymore, no insolvencies, no deprivation of private property. And this will be a cooperative society where our living standard is completely decoupled from what we are doing with our lifetime. This is the most important part of a new society. Decouple the living standard from the content of what you are doing in your lifetime. Because this is what you are really longing for, your fulfillment, your human potential. And that it's not a medium of exchange. Your lifetime should never be a medium of exchange.
Yeah, that would add a sense of fulfillment and individuality to people, and then you wouldn't have all those problems like unemployment, etc., would all vanish, and all of a sudden politicians wouldn't have anything to do. I can understand why.
Unemployment would not vanish; it would become meaningless. Yeah, because we would be very glad to be unemployed, because we would still have our living standard, or even a better living standard than if we were employed in any job.
So we'd get machines to do it, or
robots, machines, techniques, or even leave it away. There are so many things that people do out there. I would say 80%. It's not really necessary. It's good for nothing. Only to give them the feeling that they have to work for their income.
Yeah.
It's a kind of dogma, and it's a psychological doctrine and method and tool of indoctrination, practical indoctrination of the mass population. Because our monetary system is a chained blackmail system. Each one has to blackmail the next one
Yeah.
to pay its bills and the interest for the banks. Okay, so the public perception is this is our reality, but it's not reality. It's an artifact. It's an artificial construction. Because even our accounting systems, the rules of bookkeeping, are completely artificial. And we can change it. If the population, the society, comes to a completely different new consensus, then we can change all of that.
Which leaves out the last question I was going to ask. I always ask, like, what would you change if you could change one thing? Because you've answered
One thing?
just one thing. If yeah, well, you know, it's otherwise we'd go on talking for 4 hours. But you know, it's one of those questions that wasn't.
I know.
But
I would not change anything.
you let people do it, or time do it, or
It's not necessary to change something, because everything is always in the change. Okay? It's the question of your mental point of view. If you believe in stability of a model, in status 1, and then a process of change, and then is the model in state 2, then the question is right. There is a change.
yeah,
But if you have a process view of reality, then there is always everything changing,
yeah.
and there is never a stable point, a stable state of reality. And therefore I would not change anything, because everything is always changing.
Yeah, I do get that. I think it's I phrased the question the
I
wrong
know,
way.
but you see,
I really have,
you can learn something about our philosophical models in our society.
That's true, yeah. Okay, those were my questions for today. Thank you very much for being here. Is there something, any announcement you'd like to make about some upcoming dates, or is there something you'd like to ask me, or
Yeah, there will be
really
many interesting lectures and discussions in the future. In November, I will be member at the Top Info Forum in Salzburg again, and in December, I believe, we will be in Styria, in a chateau, with a large conference. If you are interested, I invite you to look at my Facebook page, or at franzhörmann.com, or at human/way.at, and there all those events will be documented, and it will be possible to get in contact with me via Facebook and via my homepage.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for being your guest.
Thank you. And you guys stay tuned for a bit of belly dancing next time.